Welcome to week 13, day 1. And just so you all know, there is a modding Minecraft workshop this Friday, extra credit. Since none of you had any questions about the image processing extra credit, or not extra credit, sorry, assignment, we are going to learn more new stuff today. So the last time we went over, just briefly on Friday, we had a Halloween party. We briefly went over how to count letters in a string, and I think the 2 o'clock class I showed this. I don't know if I did it at the 12 o'clock. There is a function called count that you could say count from the beginning of the string to the end of the string, how many times the character C appears, and that will tell you, there are 2 P's in apple, there's 1 A in apple, there's 0 Z's in apple, that kind of stuff. So there's actually a standard library function that did that big gnarly thing that the new programmer was doing on CPP questions. It's a single line of code to solve that. You're still a bit confused about the SCP client part, okay? So are you using Windows or Macintosh? Or Linux, I should say. That's all it is. Windows, okay. So you're going to download a program called WinSCP, and you're going to launch it. And then you are going to type in the same hostname, username, and password that you do to connect on PuTTY. And then you hit login, and it will log you in on the server. And you can drag files from one side to the other. And it will copy from whatever directory you are on your computer here to whatever directory you have up here. And you can click and change directories just like you do in Windows. Okay. So you just drag files back and forth that way. So after your filters run, it's going to output filter1.jpg, filter2.jpg, and filter3.jpg if you have a third person, which most of you don't. I think there's only 2 or 3 groups across the 2 sections that have three people in them. I did mix up the groups. If you are starting now and you haven't contacted your partners yet, there's a good chance that you were put into an AFK group. So double check that. If you've been in contact with your partner, you should be fine. But just double check anyway that you are with the person who you think you're with. Okay. As a number of people said they were not able to get in contact with their partners, and for all of those people, they all got put into a group with each other. So all the AFK students can go and AFK with each other. All right. There's 2 days left, and that's usually when the AFK students start waking up like, wait, what do I have to do? It's like midnight the night before, like, wait, I have a partner? And so that's why they get put into their own group, so they don't, take out the grades of more diligent students. Okay, so what we're going to do today is, one of the things that I like to do in this class is I actually use problems from real life in it. I know it's a weird concept. This is supposed to be college, not real life. We're not supposed to solve useful problems and stuff, but I've got a habit of like going around the world and when I see something I'm like, oh, that's interesting, I bet my students could do that, and then I like make a homework assignment out of it. Alternatively, job interview questions, I do a lot of there's certain common questions that come up a lot on job interviews. And so I tend to give those as homework as well, just so that students kind of get a feel for job interviews and hopefully get a job in the future. It's a weird concept. All right. So the thing that I'm working on right now is I've got an attendance program for my computer science 1 students. When I try to open an image in WinSCP, it states that I cannot open the image in filter1.cc. Filter1.cc is not an image. It saves it to filter1.jpg. So filter1.cc is your source code, and when your program runs, it will save a picture called filter1.jpg. You right-click on that, choose Open, and it'll preview it, or you can download filter1.jpg to your local computer and then open it there. If you don't have an image viewer installed, then download it to your computer and make sure you install Windows Photo Viewer. It should come with your operating system, so if you've broken your operating system somehow, don't want to tell you. But yeah, the .cc file is your source code. .cc means this is a C++ file. anything that has a .jpeg ending is a image file. And so JPEG files are pictures, which is different from filter 2.cc, which is the source code. Okay, so what I'm working on right now is I take attendance in my CSCI 1 class by having the students participate on Discord. Mr. Walker, who you sometimes see hanging out in here, he's not here right now, he wrote a Discord bot that kind of watches people chatting, and once they've participated enough, it sends them a message saying that you have completed your obligations to the class for this day. You have to participate every day of class, and every day that you participate, it has a little database that gets incremented by 1, so on and so forth. So every week it mails me an attendance report, and then I have to take that and go into Canvas and punch it in, and it's kind of annoying. Not what Mr. Walker did. It was very, very nice because I'm not paying him or anything like that. I'm actually going to end up giving him one of my old 1 terabyte SSDs. Fairly high speed one. Back in the day it was $1,000. Nowadays it's $100-200 in value. I'll probably give him one of those. But I just have lying around here. But yeah, he's just doing it out of the goodness of his heart. I'm not complaining about that. It's just the data, the format that I get is just like somebody's Discord name and the attendance count, and that's not super useful. Yeah, because in Canvas, and I can't show it because of the FERPA regulations, but in the grade book it sorts everybody by name, not by their Discord name. And so I kind of have to look at the Discord name and be like, all right, this person's name is Corrente music sign. Okay, that's probably Corrente, and then I go and I enter the thing there, and none of it's in order or anything like that. So what I'm going to show you guys today is how I'm going to download the attendance files to my computer, and then I'm going to write a program to help me parse it and make entering the grades easier. Because entering grades for 90 students each week is annoying because you have to look at their Discord name and be like, all right, it's this person. So, okay, so let's do this. So the file format, I'm not going to use the actual attendance files, but the file format it looks something like this. In fact, let me make a new CD. I don't have one yet. Okay. Make your attendance. Is it attendance or attendance? I always forget. Let me check. Attendance. Yeah, with a dance. Attendance. Okay. So I'm going to make a sample attendance file, week1.text, and it's going to be like big honkin' Jones with a 10 at the end. Or, no, I guess there's 3 classes a day, and then there is going to be like Princess Jasmine, and then there's going to be like Fidel Castro, who missed a class, and made all of them, and yeah, things like this. Okay, so, and then some of them will have like Unicode in the names, like Jones, treble, that kind of stuff. Okay, so copy week1.text to week2.text, and then for the next week there's going to be different amounts of attendance. Maybe maybe Monday was a holiday, something like that. Okay, so and if you're thinking like, well, what does this have to do with me? Just be aware that this is the kind of thing that like you actually do as a real programmer, right? A lot of you're going to write a substring to match last name to match it to student ID. It could be first name, it could be last name. It's super, like we tell people you have to use your last name on Discord, and most people listen. And then the ones that don't, I give them a 0 because I have no idea who they are. Like when your name is Big Blue, it's like, I don't know who you are, you know? And they're like, yeah, but my name is Blue Forte. You should have known it. I'm not, this is not like, you know, The Hobbit where like, you're like with Gollum underneath the cavern and you're like playing riddles. Like I'm trying to enter your grades into the grade book, and I don't want to sit there and play like riddle games with your usernames and stuff like that. So could you use a map to match Discord names to real names? Excellent idea. That's the direction I was going to go. So I would actually like to do this once. Like I would like to figure it out once who the people are. You know what I'm saying? Like this is this person, you know? And I just want to create a map, yeah, between their Discord name and their real username, sort it by last name, right? So that it matches the format on Canvas, and then have a grade. You know what I'm saying? And then I can just sit there and go bloop, bloop, bloop. And if I wanted to be really fancy, I could add a macro to just copy the values over and stuff like that. I don't trust that with a gradebook. You know what I mean? Like if you accidentally overwrite the wrong column in a gradebook, no. So I whenever it comes to a gradebook, I'm very like cautious with it, and I do it all by hand, and you know, make sure everything, because students drop, you know, then the rows get messed up and stuff like that. So okay, so let's do this. So we've got our students, and we got a couple weeks of data. Let's just change the. It didn't show up that week. Okay. All right. So, first thing we're going to need is something to describe. First of all, do you guys understand the problem? Because if you don't understand the problem, none of this will make sense. Okay. What I want to have is like this Discord name. Like I want to read this whole file and match the Discord name to the real life username, and have a count that has their like grade in it. And then after I'm done and maybe I can do multiple weeks at the same time and just kind of add all the points together, so I don't have to do it every week. I could be lazy and do it every other week, you know. And then when it's done, I want it to dump a new file that has their real life name and their grade. You guys, are you with me on this? Like, do you understand what we're doing here today? Okay. So the first thing we need to do is make a class. Right? We're going to make a class of people. And what kinds of things describe a person? Do I need to know their address? Do I need to know their social security number for this assignment? Do I need to know their student ID? Maybe their student ID, because sometimes you have students that have the same name, right? And usually if you have first name and last name, you're usually okay. Might be a good idea to have student ID in there. I manually make a note in my grade book anytime there's two students who have the same last name, and I put their student ID in there, and because your username on the server has your student ID, so I verify every time. Their name, student ID, and activity. Yeah, and one other thing. The real life name and what else, Bringus? What else do I need in my class? I need to know the real life name. Probably I'd probably even split that into first name and last name, because I need to sort on the last name, right? If I held their name just in one string, like Bill Kearney, then it would sort based on the B, not on the K. So I probably want to have first name, last name, and blood type. This is not a JRPG. It always baffles me. What's your zodiac sign? What's your blood type? SSN, male or female. Nope, don't care if you're male or female or other. Don't care about your social security number. I don't need any of that stuff because this is just a program, me to me. You know, I'm going to be parsing files that look like this and then spitting out a list of real life names that has your total score. Okay. Discord name. Yeah, that's exactly right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a person. And like I said, in this class, we just use structs because the whole private and public thing comes up in 41. In this class, if you make everything public, it's called bad coding style, but your code also works. So we don't worry about data hiding and things like that in this class. It is technically not how I would code professionally, but at the same time, if I'm just coding up a little algorithm for myself to just like parse, you know, attendance files and spit them out, yeah, I'll do it this way. Who cares? It's just me to me. I'm coding up something, you know, in a little bit of time, and you know. Okay, so the things that describe a person are going to be your. So we're going to have a string called Discord name, string called first name, string called last name. Student ID could be an int, but I'm just going to make it a long. I'm going to make an unsigned long student ID. There's score. And then I'm probably going to want to dump this to disk. Like, at least the mapping. I don't know about the score. I don't know if I want to save the score. But I think I do want to, like, dump the rest of this to disk. Can you make a class name temp and a struct name temp? No. They're the same thing, I think. Violates the ODR. Can't do it. Classes and structs are literally the same thing. They compile exactly the same way. It's just one defaults to public, one defaults to private. Did student ID have to be a string because of leading zero? That's a good point also. Yeah. I like the way you think about that. Yeah. All right, so it'd be like, what is it? 0, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that. 7 digits. Something like that. Okay. Class section. Yeah. If I was doing this for multiple classes, I would put in a class section. Some programmers will do that, by the way. They'll like think about the future. Be like, all right, well, what if the same person is in multiple classes? You know, and then we need to track their attendance in one class versus the other class. Personally, unless it's like I'll think about it, and if it's like, yeah, that might come up, I'll probably build it in. In this case, no. I do try to resist the temptation to over-engineer solutions. I try to make a clean solution that if I have to modify it, I can, and it won't break anything. But I try not to, like, you know, put in social security and address and, you know, like anything that I don't need for the assignment or for my task, I don't put in. Okay. Thinking about the future is life. Although my plans for the future are wrong, you had to write a good amount anyway. Yeah, you have to kind of think about it, and then you also have to like not. Yeah. There's a real temptation, like for example, I was in a networking class, and we had to write a networking program where basically you connect to a server that you would write, and the server would send back things, and then now that you're logged in, you can send other things, and it sends back things, and you can be like, all right, now I'm in this state, and then you can log out and stuff like that. And so one of my classmates wrote a complete state machine engine for his networking code, so that his client would shift from the state of like connecting state to like the connected state to like a special state where you're like transmitting data, then back to the connected state, and then the disconnected state. And he like wrote this like 30,000 line of code state machine thing to handle transitioning the states. And I'm like, dude, I just used an if statement. I have a variable that's like, am I in the uploading state? Am I in the connected state? Am I in the disconnected state? Or am I logging in? I just have an int, dude. And he wrote like this gargantuan. He's like, but what happens if in the future, we have to have many more states? And I'm like, in that case, okay, sure. But this is a homework assignment. There's not going to be, you know what I mean? Like, you sort of have to like look at the future and like, yeah, if you're like writing the networking code for like World of Warcraft or something, you've got to future-proof yourself so that, if they add more classes to the game, if they add more spells to the game, you gotta be able to handle your protocol's got to be able to like evolve and handle it. But a lot of like he just went way too far. Like he spent a week writing this thing that I used an int. I used one integer and an if statement. You know what I mean? Like I was like, what are you doing? Why are you over engineering this so much? Well, just because the requirements could change. And, oh my gosh, yeah. So yeah, it's something to think about, but resist the temptation to add extra stuff until you need them. Also, is a good advice. Okay, so we got our person. Now we're gonna load from disk. So we're gonna do command line parameters. argv. So argc holds the number of command line parameters, including a.out. A.out is actually passed in. It's the first one. argv is a array of strings, C-style strings, holding each command line parameter. So let me just do that first. So so for int I equals 0, I is less than argc, I plus plus, cout argv. Okay, so let me just start off showing you what, because this is actually relevant to your image processing assignment. Okay, argc, that's argc. It's the number of command line parameters you have. So let me show you what that means. So if we compile this code and run it, there's one command line parameter, which is a.out. If I run it with like main.cc, there's two command line parameters, a.out, main.cc. Like, how do you think vim space main.cc works? When you run vim, it checks how many command line parameters are passed in. Okay. So the first command line parameter would be vim. The second command line parameter would be main.cc. And if I type in A12345 abba dabba do, you can see each one of those different words is a separate command line parameter passed in. So argc argc is the number of command line parameters. So if you run it like this, this is the command line, right? We're running on the command line. If we type in that, excuse me, then the number of command line parameters is 4. Okay. That makes sense, Bringus? So first one's a.out, second one's main.cc, third one's... So this is how you link the command line with your program. Okay. And when you run your image processing assignment, like a lot of students are like, yeah, you have to run it like this: a.out, pass in like public kyoto.jpg or something like that. And so kyoto.jpg gets passed in as the command line parameter. Then it runs your image filter on kyoto.jpg. That's how you connect the command line to your code. And that's done for you in main.cc. But some people were trying to run it like this, and it wasn't working, and some people were trying to run it like this, and it wasn't working. It's one of the reasons why I tell you guys to do the Unix tutorial. And there's I understand that there's a real temptation for students to be like, something's optional, I'm not going to do it. Trust me on this one, you really want to do the Unix tutorial. It's an hour or two of your life, and it'll save you an hour or two. Or 100 or 200 down the line. Okay. It's very, very useful. Okay, so here we go. So that's all working. So if argc is less than 2, the hell keeps texting me. Mute. So if argc is less than 2, usage. This is a pretty common thing that I do. I oftentimes forget how I'm supposed to run a program, and so I'll just print out like something like this. Usage, run, a.out, indents file 1.txt, indents file 2.txt to parse the students or whatever. So I make a note to myself and then quit. Okay. And I do this with all of my stuff. Like if you ever see me like collect your homework, sudo collect homework, CSCI 40, usage. Nope, you forgot something. You needed to tell me which homework to grade. Okay. And then I tell myself this is the order that the parameters come in. Because I don't, like I'll forget, I'll mistype things all the time. And so I even though this is a thing that is just for me to run, I still double check everything. I vet everything. Like half my collect homework script is just vetting. Even though I'm the only person that's gonna be typing stuff in, I still vet it extensively. Okay. Will the image assignment be submitted like the RPG assignment where one person submits it? You're going to submit it on Google Drive. So on the Google Drive, it's going to have the last name of each of the partners. If you check the assignment on Canvas, it lays out very specifically the naming format. It's going to be like Bell_Kearney_1, Bell_Kearney_2. There's a very specific format you have to follow because it sorts the files by name, and then it allows me to grade them quite easily. And Mr. Bell and we're doing the image processing grading on Wednesday. So if you guys want to be here then, we can vote on it and stuff. Are you saying we need to make a filter together, Kearney? We could. That'd be fun. Do you need the hashtag and the secret message on all the photos? No, just by the end. Just by the end, you have to have a hashtag and secret message somewhere on it. Okay, so let's do this. So we're gonna read a line at a time. And so if we're going to read a line at a time, what should we be doing here? And we're going to be reading a file at a time. We got multiple files. Okay, so so for int I equals 1, I is less than argc I plus plus. We start at 1 instead of 0 because a.out is the first, and we're not going to open up a.out. So we're going to open a file. BI. So we're going to open a file. And this is what's happening inside of your main.cc, by the way. I wrote this code for you, but this is what's happening when you do your image processing. So we're going to open the file. And if the file cannot be opened, we will die. Just your generic die function. I don't care enough to do anymore. Okay. Okay, so we're going to try opening the file. So we're going to pass in like 3 files. We're going to open them all up. Okay. And we're going to need to make a... data structure of some sort. We're going to be reading a line at a time from a file, right? So the first thing we should do before we like do anything more is let's just make sure that we're reading all of the data from the files. You guys with me on this? Like, let's just print out the contents of the file. You guys understand? Like, if you've taken me for game development, Hazelton is in the audience. He knows exactly where I'm going with this. Every time I do anything in game development, like, you know, I shoot a line, you know, like I'm making a hit scan weapon. The first thing I do, Hazelton, Mincarelli, what's the first thing I do? Like, trace a line through this 3D world. We got a gun, we trace the line, we hit something. What's the first thing that I do? Moya knows too, I think. Nope. Moya's just doing laundry. Okay, fine. If I'm tracing a line through a world, what's the first thing I do with the result? Yeah, I print. What did I hit? You know, I just want to make sure it's working. You know, and so I'm just going to print all the lines on here, and I'm going to do that by doing readline. So string s is equal to readline from the file. So I'm going to read one line at a time, and I'm just going to echo it to the screen, and just see what we get. Let's just see what we get here. Big honkin' Jones. So we read the first line of each file. Do it at the same time. Every time I get something from an API, print what I get. Yep. Yeah. So, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? I'm only reading once from each file. So I got my loop here that's running across every file. So for every file, I'm going to open the file, read one line, and then move on to the next file. That's what I have right now. What do I need to do? While loop, exactly. So, while there is more data to be read, and there we go, except we're getting this like weird empty line here, which for the Pokemon assignment, a lot of students were like, why is my last read not working right? You know, and this is something I hammer. If you ever see a problem on the very last line, like you're reading an extra line or something like that, you know, when you read off the end of the file, what do you need to check for? What should I be looking for when I read? Every time you read, check for end of file. Exactly. So every time I do a read, I need to say have we hit the end of file or an error occurred. Like sometimes your network share goes down. You know what I mean? Like you can't rely on your hard drive still being up. Like, you know, things happen. But in general, this will fail when you hit the end of file. So if we hit the end of file, we just in the loop. Okay. So when we hit the EOF, the end of file, we don't do anything with that line that we read. Okay, and there we go. So there's all of our data. So we've got the program right now effectively called cat. If you look at cat, that's funny. I did leave a space in that one. So cat basically dumps a file to the screen, and that's essentially what we've got right now. We've re-implemented cat, which means concatenate. It concatenates multiple files together like this. Okay, so good on us. Who wrote cat? Let's find out who wrote cat. This was written by Torbjorn. Dude, I love your sentry guns. Torbjorn Granlund and Richard Stallman. Look at that, my boy. Represent. All right, so Richard Stallman wrote cat. Schrodinger. Yeah. Okay. So there you go. Copyright 2018. Free Software Foundation. There you go. All right. So our code right now is saying for every file on the command line, open that file, and if that file could be open, die. Otherwise, while there's data left in the file, read a line at a time, check to see if an error occurred, And you might say that this is redundant. We don't need this, and technically that's true. But I like having it in there just in case something goes wrong. So it's just a little extra safety. It is inefficient. This should probably be a true while true because this is checking for an error. But you noticed how like when we didn't have this in here, the thing ended anyway. It just had an extra line at the end. So I like being safe and maybe a little bit slower than normal. Okay, so instead of outputting it to the screen, now we need to put it into some sort of data structure. Okay. On Torbjorn isn't building turrets, he writes cat. Schrodinger's command line. Yeah, Schrodinger's cat. It's funny. So we need to add this to something. We need to like save. We need to like save their data. We need to like make a person out of them. I'll make a man out of you. So actually the first thing we need to do is we need to parse this line, right? Because we've got this, right? And this is not tab delineated, right? Delimited, sorry. What does the double pointer mean? It's a pointer to a pointer. So remember, a pointer is an array, and so it's an array of arrays. Each array is a string. So in C, a string is an array of characters, and so it is an array of strings. That's what it is. Yeah, we could do under the map. The first thing I think we need to do is we need to split. You need to split this, and this is going to be kind of annoying because these are held in just with spaces. So we actually kind of want to parse this file backward. Like, we're going to parse each line backwards. You know what I mean? Like, or we can split it on spaces, and then the last word is an integer. Okay. That's why tab delimited is actually a lot easier to work with. Okay, so we're gonna need to split this. Okay, so we'll do a string stream. I string stream, and notice that once I'm confident that it's working, I pull the cout statement out, so I know what's going on now. And a lot of you don't, and then your code doesn't work. You're like, I don't know what. You got to just get into that habit of just like, you know, seeing what's happening, and then just pull it out when you're done. Like, okay, I know it's working now. ISS. So we're gonna split this based on spaces, I guess, or we could just use double right arrow. What we can do is we can double right arrow into a string over and over again until we get an integer. Okay. So, yeah, that'll work. All right. So, string up Discord name. Okay. So we will do that and temp. Okay. So we're going to read into temp, and so we're going to read one word at a time. So if your name is big by, you know, whatever, but big blue, whatever, there's a space in between each one. And so we're going to do this repeatedly. So we're going to say while there's more data in ISS, we're going to read one word. And if that word is a number, so if is digit temp dot at 0, if not ISS break. Okay, so if do you guys see what the problem is? It's like some people have like two words in their name, some have one, some have Unicode. What we're going to do is we're going to read one string at a time. We're going to read big, then we're going to read honkin', then we're going to read Jones, then we're going to read 3, and we're going to keep going until we find the number. Once we find the number, we're done. And so everything prior to the number becomes their Discord name, and then the number becomes their count. Do you guys see what we're going to do here? So we read one line, and then we're going to read one word at a time out of that line until we find where the number is. And if we don't find the number at all, then we die, because that's not a valid attendance file. What if their name has a number in it? Oh, good point. We're only checking the first letter. So if their username starts with a number, sounds like you should tell Walker to give you a CSV. Nah, but this is useful for them. It's annoying for everybody. If their username starts with a number, then yeah, read each word into a vector and use vector end. Yeah, that's a better way of doing it. Okay. So rather than that, okay, we'll do this string temp. So vector of strings named vec. Okay. What's the matter here? What's going on? What's wrong with that? Variable. Yeah. Okay. Vec dot push back temp. So we're going to read just one word at a time, and we're going to put it into a vector, and then we'll just say for every string in the vector cout the string. And then that should work. There we go. So you can see that it is now reading a word. It reads a line, then it reads the first word out of the line and couts it with an inline, so on and so forth. If we wanted to recover our previous formatting, do this. Okay, so all of our data is being read. Cool. So cool. Okay, so now we've got a vector that has all of the words in it, and we want the last word to be the last word in that vector is going to be their attendance, right? Okay. So int attendance is equal to stoy vec.back. Don't use vec.end, by the way. Vec.end is one after the end of the vector, and it's a pointer also. It's an iterator. It's like a pointer that points off the edge of the thing. If you want the last element in the vector, it's vector.back. And so we're going to convert that to we're going to convert it from a string to a number, and what we should see is just these numbers here: 33233, 33233. Okay, I'm sure it works. 00, 100 at the end. All right, cool. So we're getting all the attendance data that way, and then the rest of the vector, we need to stir cat together. Okay. So this is why I was not going to use a vector, actually. That's fine. Okay. Does vector have pop? Yeah, it's got pop back. Yeah, good. Yeah, actually that's perfect. But we need to concatenate all the words in the vector together. So vec.pop back. So delete the last element. So we delete the attendance, then everything else is their username. And then we can say string Discord name there, and then we can say for every string in the vector, we will say Discord name plus equals s plus that. So we'll see out Discord name followed by attendance. Okay. So we're getting Big Honkin' Jones followed by attendance. Princess Jasmine followed by attendance. I think we're ending up with like an extra space or something at the end of these. Oh yeah, because the very last one is going to put a space there. And so then we'll say Discord name dot pop back. Get rid of the space on that one as well. Which won't work if there's an empty name, but there we go. Okay. And we're back where we were before. So again, we're just catting all the files together. It looks like we've accomplished nothing, but we've accomplished everything. So no vector join, I know. Yeah, split, join, trim, like are three like so very, very useful functions. They're found in Boost, but Boost slows your compile time down so much that it's usually better to just split and join yourself with something like this. It's super annoying. Okay, so do you guys see what we did here? What we've accomplished today? So we're opening up a bunch of files. For every file, we open it up and read every line from the file. We then split it based on spaces. This is going to read one word at a time in. The last word we read, we convert to an integer. We get rid of it. And then we then concatenate all the other words together and we get their Discord name. So this is what you have to do if you don't have tab delimited files. It's super annoying. Super, super annoying. But here we are. So we're in a good place now. Now we can actually do our work. We've got... we now need to make a data structure of some sort. So, you guys don't really know an ordered map yet, so I'm just going to use vectors, even though they're not the most efficient thing. So we'll say vector of persons named database. Since we're talking about like 90 people, like the fact that it's not efficient is going to be like, yeah. So, in reality, I wouldn't use a vector here, but that's fine. So we're going to make a vector for every person, and this is going to have to be entered by hand. That's going to have to be entered by hand, but by loading from these files, we're going to get their Discord name, and we're going to get their scores. And if they're already in the vector, then we're going to add the scores together, right? So all the, you know what I mean? Like what I want in the thing is Big Honkin' Jones to have a score of 3 plus 1 plus 3, right? So I want the database to hold Big Honkin' Jones as the Discord name, and the score would be 7, because every time we rediscover Big Honkin' Jones, we want to just update the attendance count. That makes sense? Or are you guys just like completely baffled by this? Because we have a text file with just a bunch of usernames and how many times they showed up that week. We just want to add them all together. I was paid $5,000 to write this program, by the way. It took me about as long as you saw me do it here. It's a web-enabled thingamabob, but you know, got paid $5K for this. So I'm telling you, like, this is in real life. Like your programming assignments in real life oftentimes are not like compute the given a chessboard, that has X number of pawns on it, find the shortest route for a queen to navigate to the like in real life, like the problems you get are usually pretty straightforward. Not all of them. Like if you work on like autonomous vehicles and things like that, those are actually really, really hard. And there's kind of this bifurcation, like if it's something that nobody's done before, it's really hard. If it's something that somebody's done before, it's really easy. And so when you're in the real world doing programming, you get a mix of like things like I have no idea how to do this, and like that's trivial, and that's kind of what real life programming is like. What you do in college is not always. It was $5,000 for about an hour's work, and probably a little bit of testing and things like that. But it took about an hour. Fed into a database. So basically, I would take attendance files like this, parse them, look them up, look up the records for the teachers, because this was like for teacher attendance workshops and things like that. So it would look them up in the database and update their attendance based on this was the number of hours they spent. So like it would have the teacher's name and the number of hours they spent at the workshop, and then every time they went to a workshop, they would sign in. And then the sign-in list would be typed in to the computer, and they would just take that form, copy, paste it into the website, and then that would all feed into the database. And then at the end of the semester, we'd click a button, and it would spit back out basically this. It would spit out, Big Honkin' Jones attended 30 hours of workshops. Princess Jasmine attended 40 hours of workshops. And I would sort them by the number of hours, and then there would be a cutoff, and like anybody who didn't make 30 hours or whatever would not get paid. So the teachers would get paid if they attended at least X number of hours by the end of the semester, right? Or the end of the year, whatever. So they were doing all this by hand, and they had like 120 teachers, and they were having to do all of the math. And like can you imagine, like you've got like 20 workshops, 100 teachers, and you're like going through it, like adding 7 plus 1 plus 2. That person left early, it's 3, And they were like, forget about it, So they were very happy to pay me $5,000 to do that for them. $5K an hour, yeah, it's not the most that I've made. The most I've made is about $30,000 an hour. But he tried to make Blender models for his RPG 40 project. You do not have to do that. He might have, but $5K an hour still probably saved them a lot of money. Yeah, it really did, because you're paying people a lot of money to sit there and do this, and if you miss one of the names, then the teacher doesn't get paid. Then they get angry at you, and it's just So I was actually proud of that. I was supposed to get paid $30,000 for a week. Like they were paying me $30,000 to come out to Phoenix in the middle of summer for a week and teach teachers all week long, and they ended up scaling it back to just 1 hour. And I'm like, "Are you still going to pay me $30,000?" They're like, "Yes." I was like, "You got a deal." And I ended up going for the whole week because I was like, I kind of felt a little like, not guilty exactly, but like I just felt like it'd be kind of a good idea. They're paying me that much money, I might as well go there, and I can still talk to some of the teachers during lunch and things like that. So plus it was fun. Like it was a week-long history thing, and so we like traveled to different historical sites in the Maricopa County, and got to listen to history professors talk. So my hotel was covered, and I got a rental car, and got a melt. It was like 130 on my car's temp. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so what we need to do is see if the person exists in there already, and if they exist, we're going to update their time with the new score. Right? I kind of want to do. There's a couple different ways of doing this. Fine, we'll use an order map. Okay. So the reason why I'm doing this, you'll see in a second. You'll see in a second. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up if the person's in there. So I've got a lookup table here that you feed it a Discord name, and it feeds back to you the index into the database of that person. But if the person doesn't exist, then it's going to return 0. And so I'm going to put into index 0 just like a non-existent entry, so that we don't have to worry about 0 actually being a person. Okay. So index is equal to lookup table square bracket Discord name. Yeah. And so it's going to look up the teacher, or in this case student, and it's going to tell me which index in the vector they're in. And if they're not in there, it'll be index 0. Okay. So if index equals 0, this is the same thing as saying that, then it's a new student. And if it's not, then it is an old student. So if it's a new student, we will say vector, or what do we call it? Database dot push back. So if it's a new student, we're going to add them into the database. And what we're going to do is in the Discord, what's the format? Discord name, first name, last name, student ID, score. Okay. Discord name, first name, last name, student ID, and then the score is going to be attendance. Okay. And so that's going to add. Now we're missing these 3 things, and so we're running out of time. But what I would do is, like, anytime we discover a new student that we've never seen before, it's going to be like, yo, look up this person for me. And then I'll go and be like, all right, Big Blue. All right, so I'm going to search, Control F, and I'm going to play the puzzle game where I'm trying to figure out who the person is based on their Discord name. And I'm going to enter it, like, to do, figure out their real life name and enter here. Okay. So the first time I discover a new student, I'm going to have to link, I'm going to have to go onto Canvas and like write it down. And then when I'm done with this, I'm going to save it to disk, because I don't want to have to do this every time. Every week when I do attendance, I don't want to have to do this again. So I'm actually going to probably write the mapping. I'm probably going to write this database to disk. And I'll just clear the attendance every time and load new files. But I'm going to keep like their real life name associated with their Discord name. So I'm actually going to dump this to disk probably in the next class period. So watch the next lecture to see the second half of this. Okay. And if it's an old student, then what we do is we look up their. So this lookup table thing here, that's going to tell us. We pass in a string, and it returns to us an integer. And the integer is where they are in the database. It's their index in the database. And so we're just going to go to that spot in the database. We're going to say database.at_index. And their, what is it, attendance? Is that what we called it? Score. And their score will be updated like that. So if we've seen them before, then what we do is we just increment their attendance. And then the only other thing we have to do is add them. So if okay, so once we've added them into the database, then we have to add them to the lookup table as well. So lookup table, square bracket, Discord name, and so we want to set the index here. Remember, this thing is telling us the location of this person, and so we just added them. We just added them to the vector. So how do we get what index that person just went in at? Like, we just added them to the database. So how do we know what index they're at in the database? So let's say we had 10 people in the database before, and we just push back. They're now at index 10, actually, right? Because if we had 10 people before, it'd go from 0 to 9. So if we push back them, they're now at 10, index 10. Vector.at what? Like, the index is what you put into vector.at. I want to find out what is the index of the person we just added to the database. How do I get what index it was at? So let's think about this. When the vector is empty, it's going to go in at index 0, right? And when you have a vector of size 1, it's going to go in at index 1. And if you have a vector of size 2, it's going to go into index 2. Size minus 1 if we do it there, or if we do it before we insert, we don't even have to subtract 1. Boom. So what this is going to do, it's going to associate their name, Garcia, whatever, with Garcia is at index 7, and Bywater is index 20, things like that. So as we parse the file, it's just going to be writing into this lookup table the index that each of the people are at. And what if that pushback failed? I don't know. Everything will break. Never seen pushback really fail. I mean, we could run out of memory, but how would it? I mean, if it failed, would it throw? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's not. Yeah. Yeah, the bigger thing that would cause failure is the stoy. Like, that could throw an exception. Like, if the data being passed in didn't have a number in it, that would fail. If any of the lines are blank, it would probably fail because we're calling pop back, right? So that wouldn't run, and we're going to call pop back on an empty string, so we should probably error check that. So if Discord name.size is 0, the Discord's die. Okay, so we won't crash now. Instead, we'll just print bad input. So if any of the lines are blank, it'll just crash. Or if we get a blank line, like, that could happen. There's, in fact, I think a blank line maybe in one of them. Yeah. Let's go on to the next line, I guess. I mean, it's actually not the end of the world if we read a blank line. That, though, would crash. Got a blank line. Yeah, so if we just had a number 5 on the line, then this would just throw it out and move on. And if we don't want to crash here, if vector.back.size is 0, or vector.back.at 0, or if it's not a digit. So that's a bit of an if statement there for you guys to look at. So what if we read a blank line, right? we read a blank line. We try grabbing the last element in the vector. Yeah, if vector dot size is 0, ignore it, move on. So ignore a blank line. If the last word in it is size 0, which I don't think could happen now because we're checking for that. But if it's not, make sure, I don't think this can happen now because we're checking above. So make sure the last word is a number. Right, because Stoy will throw an exception if it doesn't start with a number. So we're gonna just, if they didn't put a number on a line, then we just ignore it and move on to the next line. So our code's a little bit more robust now. It won't crash now. Yeah, all right. So at the end of the day, what we're going to have is a vector that holds everyone's Discord name and the sum of all of their tenances. And then we've got this lookup table that allows us to quickly look up where in the vector it is. I could have used find and things like that, but I feel a little bit guilty being slow. So I'm just going to print the lookup table. So after all this is done, I'm just going to print out the entire database and the entire lookup table so you can kind of see what it looks like, and then we'll call it a day. So for every person P in the database, we are going to cout P. Do we know how to print out people? People? Do we know how to print out people? Do we know how to do this? Does C++ know how to do this? Nah. So let's go up here. Friend ostream operator $0 ostream reference outs const person. Told you it's a pattern. You just kind of memorize it, or you don't have to. You just look it up every time. So we're going to outstream $0 p dot Discord name p dot first name p dot last name. Actually, I'm going to make these tabs for reasons, and the reason being I'm going to be using this to write to disk, and so I'm going to write it to disk in tab delimited format, which will make it easy to parse later on for me. Okay, so Discord name, tab, first name, tab, last name, tab, student ID, tab, score, tab, why not? And return outs. Okay. Error, that's p.score. Days. Vector dot back. I did forget the. Open close parentheses. Okay, so our database of people is Big Honkin' Jones. Ooh, they did not update their database. Princess Jasmine, though, has an attendance of 17. Fidel Castro is 6. 2, 1, and 3. That's correct. That's wrong, though. And that is super wrong. I think she's getting both of them. So let's try and figure out why. So for every, we don't need to output you anymore because we're confident you're working. So for every, let's just see if the lookup table is working. So we'll see out first, So we're going to dump the lookup table. Alright, so Old Bailey is at location 2. Ooh, that's not good. How is that happening? Let's see. So, how are all these people getting 2 as their... Will this go be in public? Yeah, this will be in public. Oh, let's find it. Size, yeah. Table descriptive name. Let's find it. See out. Looking up. Discord name. Index. Alright, so let's see. First time we look them up, they're at 0. And then the next time we look them up, it says at index 3. That's wrong, though. It shouldn't be at 3. That's all correct. Why is the vector dot... Vector dot size... What am I missing here? It should be size 1. Why is it size 3? Oh, because it's vec. Database.size. Database.size. There we go. This is why you shouldn't use vec for everything. CW database.size, because vec is the number of words in their name. Boom. Alright. Yeah. Awkward. Yeah, that's right. Okay. There we go. So that should work now. Alright, so let's go up to the top here. So Big Honkin' Jones gets added at 0, 1. Jasmine is added at 2. Castro's not found, added at 3. Havig's not found, added at 4. Bailey's not found, added at 5. Jones is not found, added at 6. It looks it up at 1, at 2, at 3, at 4, at 5. Good. Good. Yes. Excellent. So... do you guys see how that debugging process worked? It was adding, because I was using vector.size instead of database.size, it was adding them to the database at the location of the number of words in their name. And if you think this bug is something just I did, just be aware that, you know, a friend of mine who works for a large company, their database was mixing up income and social security number and address and things like that. So they were completely, wrong. All right, so that should be good. So, but do you guys see how that process works? Like, yeah, something's weird. The count's all adding up onto Princess Jasmine, and like, what's going on there? You know, that process of like, you know, like, all right, we'll just print out what's going on. Like, all right, that looks weird. You know what? Huh? You know. What's going on there? You know, why is the size 2? when it's here. Oh, it's the wrong vector, you know. And so by doing that, you're able to zoom in on the problem. This is where the problem is, you know. And once you can identify the line where your logic problem is, then it becomes a lot easier to find the mistake you made. So see out all the things. It's my recommendation to you. So we went a little bit over today, but I hope it was worth it. I think we're basically done, at least with this phase of it. So there's our person database. Big Honkin' Jones is in attendance of 7, Jasmine of 6, E. Jones of 3, and this is what's in our lookup. Our lookup table is just telling us which index each of the people are in. So Big Honkin' Jones is in the first slot of the vector. E. Jones is at slot 6. Princess Jasmine's at slot 2. And that just makes it easier to find people in a vector. Right. So I just made a second data structure that just holds the places where people are. I could have not used that at all and just done a find and a pointer and stuff like that. But this way is faster. So that's it for today. And I will keep working on this with the 2 o'clock class, and I'll post both lectures so you can kind of see the process of making a real program. Okay. All right, that's it for today. See you guys on Wednesday. I'm looking forward to seeing all of your wonderful images. It's always a lot of fun. All right, peace out.